Hello and welcome back to my channel. So let us watch this video of Naledi Pandor, our brave woman who was defending the African continent, or us African continent that is being bullied because of the friendship that they have made, or the enemy that they were regarded to have, though they are friends to all and enemy to none, because of the choice of non-alignment that they make themselves. So there are other countries who are not happy when it's come to this decision. So let us watch and we'll come back with our own commentaries. Let's watch.
For us, what's most important is to work hard at creating a more just, fair, equitable world and a planet that we can inhabit for future generations. We're also very keen that we should promote greater global collaboration and not division. As Africa, we have been victims of divisions and competition among powerful countries. We suffered the consequences in the context of the so-called Cold War. This competition for developing countries' support continues today. We'd like to see a different world. That's why I spoke yesterday about partnerships for development, so that we relate to each other differently, not relate to each other on the basis of, you're my friend because you accept everything that I want you to, you're my enemy because you don't agree with everything I want you to. We have to deal with each other in a very different way. We use concepts very easily, but actually we don't often mean them. So we say the UN Charter has sovereign equality for all states, but we don't regard each other as sovereign or equal. We don't regard nations under duress as sovereign or equal. And I think the world is at fault for this, and it is something we must address. So when, as the continent, we are referring to a view that we believe international law is utilized differently according to which country it is, our colleagues have to understand this concern. And it doesn't mean we're not concerned about those being killed in Ukraine or those being killed in Palestine. We're concerned about all deaths, but we must treat all equally, and we don't. This is our belief and our observation. So I think part of forming true friendships is to be honest with each other as well. Because when you are, then you speak on a basis where we each understand the perspectives we come from. There has been huge tolerance of the harm that has been visited upon Palestinian people. Huge tolerance by the world. No other part of the world would we accept such treatment. I can give you an example of South Africa after apartheid. If black South Africans had gone around murdering their fellow citizens who'd previously oppressed them, the world would never have stood by and watched. So unfortunately, we do react on the basis of who is on which side. And I think this issue of being equal in our responses is a huge challenge for all of us. I also would finally want to say that what we've done as the international community is, together in the context of the United Nations, we have framed conventions and protocol which together frame what we call international law. And that is the instrument that determines whether we're acting in terms of agreed prescripts or we are breaching them. We don't accept this new notion of rules-based international order, because we keep asking ourselves, are there rules outside the conventions, outside the protocol? We have international human rights law, international humanitarian law. All of these instruments form international law. And that is what should guide our interactions. There are no football rules or rugby rules. We have international law. And this is what I think we should be talking about and encouraging all of us to respect that. On international financial architecture, our greatest concern as the developing world are the increased debt vulnerabilities in some low-income countries as well as emerging economies. I don't think we can accept that Egypt, Kenya, South Africa should be neglected when we address the issues of debt, because as emerging economies, we want to keep them viable in order to play a critical role on the African continent. So while we'd like the debt vulnerabilities of low-income countries to be addressed, we believe we must not neglect middle-income countries either. We also believe that more innovative instruments need to be created, a greater role for developing countries in international development finance institutions. We believe the G20 Common Framework provides a very useful framework that all of us should look at. We think the process that was followed with respect to the debt relief discussions for Ethiopia, which we thought were run very well in allowing consultation on a very equitable case-by-case basis, is a good model for all of us to look at. On UN reform, yes, Security Council representation, but not just Africa. We're not selfish as Africa. It's ridiculous that India is not regarded as a permanent member of the Security Council as the most populous nation in the world. So Asia is important for us as well. Latin America is important. So representation is broader than just Africa. And I think politically, we wouldn't only talk about ourselves as the continent. We also support very much review of this veto. We think it's been totally abused, it's been politicized, UN mechanisms have been politicized, and all of that also has to be curbed. Finally, I also believe that we need to encourage, in the context of the Summit of the Future, that the L69 must develop a text on UN reform, and that we need to move to text-based negotiations. We've been talking for over 11 years. It's just too long. We now need concrete discussions on proposals. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
So the way our African leaders, they are speaking, I think by now, if the Western countries, they were really, really serious with African issue, or if they were really, really serious to solve the African problems and issues. So by now, it shouldn't be the time for the African countries to start or to continue talking and begging for the solutions. Of recent, Museveni has been blasted. So the director of the IMF, I listened very well to your speech, the paper, you have it there, but I'm no longer going to entertain this. I have been spoken enough. For over 6 years, I have been here. I have been a student leader. I went to war and come back as a president now. But I feel like I have been spoken enough. I feel like the African leaders, they have been speaking enough. They have been spoken enough for them not to be heard up to this time. So he was telling the director of the IMF that I'm no longer interested and I'm not going even to entertain that nonsense. So if there is no money for the railway, count me out. Because by now, the African leader, they they're supposed to find a solution to solve their problem. But if the IMF, they only allocated money for capacity building, but once the meeting or the seminar is finished, if those people, they have concluded now their so-called capacity buildings, the money to go and start developed certain project, that money won't be unveiled. So that money won't be available, or they won't avail that money because it's going to develop the country. And that is not what the Western countries want. That's why Mrs. Naledi Pandor is saying, we know there are conventions, we know what is in the conventions, but as African leaders, we keep on asking ourselves, maybe there are certain hidden document or policy that is providing or that is prohibiting the African continent not to develop. Because now talk of the BRICS now. So just talk of the BRICS. Now the African countries, they started to join or to show interest to join BRICS. So that one also has become a threat to the Western world. And I remember also Shankar, the foreign minister of India, was telling or was responding to Anthony Blinken, saying that, why don't you want us to have an alliance? So I am smart to choose the friends that I want to have, but not the friends that they are going to be imposed or to be dictate on me. I'm smart to choose friends that I want to hang with. So meaning that allow us to choose the countries that we want to work with, but not the countries that you USA, you want to impose those countries. And if sometimes we have those countries as in our alliance, then you are coming to tell us that if those countries, they are also not an alliance to USA, you have to drop them. That's why she's saying, if so we want countries or we want a blocks that is promoting partnership, but not a blocks that is promoting divisions. For Africa, what they need now is to develop their continent. It's not to be shown or to be portrayed as an enemy to others, since now you are seen to push yourself to that side. So let me say, most of the African countries now, they are pushing themselves to align themselves with Russia and China, Saudi Arabia, and others. And that move has posed a lot of threat to the Western world. In one word, it's like, I'll keep you, but yeah, I'll keep you, I'll dictate you, and I'm also the one who is going to decide if you need this or you need that. But the moment you started to align with someone who is having or sharing the same vision of what you want, or if these people, they are targeting to say, by Vision 2063, this is how we want Africa to be. And now the African countries, they have realized that if they align themselves with Russia, or they align themselves with China, or they allow themselves with USA, which one is going to advise them so that they can reach their dream to industrialize their continent and their country? But if you continue to align yourself with countries that they don't want to see anything good from the continent. Maybe, yeah, I think it's better for the African to go and search other countries that are also sharing the same value, the same norms, history, and dream of what they want Africa for, of what they want Africa to be. The African leaders, plus now this movement of African people that they are defending their continent so bad. Yeah, so the movement, it's becoming strong now, since everyone, most of us, we are advocating for the continent to be advised, to develop, because as soon as we understand that as soon as we understand that the enemy to the African countries or the enemy to the African continent is not themselves, but the people that they are being imposed, or the people who keep on refusing to unveil the financial money, or to avail the money for Africa to continue innovative, industrialized, growing their economy. So if this dream is not being realized, that's why they come up with AFTA now. AFTA that is there to allow the continent of Africa to start trading within themselves, so that whenever you find a country being sanctioned, so these countries, they already having a relationship that was already built, or they have already strengthened their own currency. We believe that by them trading within themselves, they are also using their own currency. And in that way, their own currency is strengthened so that they can withstand the sanction in case they are being imposed by the Western. Yeah, so this one is just to say the African countries, the African leaders, they have been speaking during the apartheid, and some of them, they have gained independence for almost 60 years. If we go to the Caribbean, because we are one nation, the Barbados, the Prime Minister, she's always speaking out against all this injustice when it's come to the International Monetary Fund. So a lot of people, they have been speaking. That's why now the African leader, they are saying, it's time, the time is now for the African to find a tangible solution when it's come to this talk that we have been speaking for so many years, for so many decades. Can we find a solution to this problem? Again, she emphasized that for the African countries, they don't want someone to divide them, but someone who can build and bring them together. Someone who can also have a honest friendship. Like, if you want to be a friend to the African, try to be honest. So this is what she's saying. Try to be honest so that the friendship can be strong, that is based on, or that is built on truth, but not you come as a clever person, but behind you there's a lot of lies. That's why now everyone is speaking about the ill countries who are there just to exploit, manipulate, impose whatever that they feel like about that countries. They can do whatever they want to do on that country. So that's why the African leaders, they are speaking out to reject any friendship that is not building Africa, but a friendship that is being shared with a common interest and with a common goal to build the African continent. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have watched up to this far, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment down below so that we can continue with the conversation, and turn on your notification so that you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. And see you on my next one. Bye bye, and